Hello legends. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build out your own customer support agent in n8n. We're going to be building this workflow, or rather I'm going to be going through this workflow with you. I've actually got another video that I made recently building out something like this step by step, so I'll link that in the description of this video. But for this video, I want to show you an automation that's going to be able to pull in all of your tickets from a tool like Zendesk or Gorgeous or even Freshdesk. So if you're actually using a customer support CRM for your business, or if you're an agency and you're actually trying to offer these services for different businesses, this automation is going to be able to pull in ticket information and every single comment on that ticket. So fresh tickets or existing tickets, it'll be able to retrieve all the ticket information. And then it has a very basic starting point where it has two separate routes. For open tickets, it's going to go across to a responses agent, which will then generate a response for that ticket and send it directly back into, let's say, Zendesk for this demo we're going to be using. It's going to send it back into Zendesk as an actual response. So I've got a demo over here where a customer is messaging asking about specs for a product. This is an internal note, just doing some testing over here. And then finally, this is an example of a live reply that goes back to the customer. So when the customer emails in or sends an SMS or whatever communication they do using Zendesk, that's going to be picked up with that automation. And then we're going to be able to respond back. Initially, I would just suggest responding back with internal notes because it's a lot safer. You're not going to, in case the system isn't super accurate or it has some errors, you're not sending it back to the customer directly, and your agents can still kind of come into here and just, have like a co-pilot explaining what to do for the next steps or generating responses. But once you are ready, you can actually just add responses directly back to customers. So they can get an SMS back onto their phone, they can get an email into their inbox. And that's all possible with this route over here. And we also log all the responses into a Google Sheet. So one thing that I find is it's actually really good to build a Google Sheet where you can have every single interaction logged from the agent that you're creating. So instead of going into Zendesk or Gorgeous and like flicking through all the responded to tickets, you can just have a really high level overview here of exactly what's going on. So you're going to be logging the date of the ticket ID, the subject, the actual body, so the entire message and all the contents and everything that's associated with that ticket, and then the response generated by the AI. And this way, once you get 10, 20, 50, 100 tickets logged, it's easy for you to just kind of flick through this Google Sheet and see the entirety of the responses. And the second route is going to be going through solve tickets and then generating an FAQ from them. So one thing that I'm finding working with customer support teams is, hey, we want to build a knowledge base. We've got this set of FAQs to start with, but a lot of the information is actually contained within specialized human agents or humans that you'll have to go into Slack and ask them. We have to ask them in real life. Or you might have to watch a YouTube video to find a specific part and then be able to respond to the customer. So this final part just goes through solve tickets and then generates an FAQ based on that entire ticket. So we're asking this agent to essentially look at the entire conversation, whether it's one reply or 10 replies, and just generate a succinct FAQ, question and answer pair, that would essentially capture the entire ticket. And then we're logging that into Google Sheet as well. So it's in the exact same sheet, but just in a different tab. And this is the FAQ tab. So we're pulling in the exact same information, date, ticket ID, subject, ticket body, then the FAQ that's generated. And then what you would do is just come into here every Monday morning at 9 a.m., review the previous week's tickets, look at whatever FAQs you have, and then you would update either your RAG database or your website. And actually for this agent, what we're doing here, and one thing that I'm actually doing a lot recently, is I'm not building a RAG database. I'm not using Pinecone as a database. A lot of people that I work with have websites that have heaps and heaps of pages, and all the product information is on the website. A lot of troubleshooting articles, like everything is there. So instead of building out a RAG database and taking all the information that you have from your website anyway, and then putting it into Pinecone, which is, that means you're now double handling the information, we're using the Perplexity API search and we're restricting domains directly to the website in question. So that means you're getting an AI-powered web search directly to the website of your choice, so your own e-commerce website or your client's e-commerce website, and then you're building out the knowledge base from there live. So you just maintain your support articles on your website, and then this API call literally hits that page. So yeah, it's a very easy way to get started. It's a very accurate way to get started. It also means you don't have to double handle information. But yeah, so in this video, we're going to be getting a customer support agent that's going to be able to respond to all tickets. And like we mentioned, either as draft replies or public replies directly back into the customer's inbox. It'll create FAQs off of solved tickets and will log everything in Google Sheet. Now, this is this workflow end to end is going to work. So I'm going to show you how to hook it up into Zendesk and actually get responses generating like this. But be mindful, it is a beginner workflow. Like you can actually take this today and start generating responses and it's going to work. Like the setup time for this will be 10 minutes. Go to my Gumroad, download this and install it. But you've got a lot of opportunity here. So throughout the explanation of this video, when I go through each node step by step, I'll just explain to you firstly what you have to change to make this work for you, but also what you could do as a step 2 and how you can improve this and enhance this. So yeah, that's what we're building out today. We're building it out for Zendesk. I'm going to show you the Zendesk side of things as well, how to create the webhooks and triggers and everything. But these principles will be applied across to Gorgias and to Freshdesk as well. So if you're using different CRM tools or even ones that are not listed here, this entire the concept of what I'm teaching you are going to be applied for all these different CRM tools. So the first thing we're doing is we need some kind of entry point into this agent in order to make it run. And one thing that I do when I'm creating these workflows is yes, we'll have a webhook that accepts a payload that comes across from our ticketing tool. So we're going to be using Zendesk as an example in this case. And all we're doing is we're creating a trigger in the Zendesk's backend that says every time we get a response from a human, so I mean, like a new ticket from a human, so like brand new tickets, or if we get a response, like when they respond to us after we respond to them, anytime we get a kind of activity onto a ticket, we want to send the ticket, like the information across to our n8n agent so that the agent can read the ticket, create a response or create FAQs, and then kind of complete the other actions. So the first step for that is we have to generate a webhook node, and we're doing that within n8n. And yeah, all we're doing is we actually have a test URL and production URL. For this instance, we're using test URL so we can actually see all the nodes fire off and see how everything works. And I manually adjusted it to make it a post request. So you can make this any type of request that you want. For this specific node, we want it to be post because we're sending information across from Zendesk across to here. And these are the settings we're going to be configuring within Zendesk. So the very first step is for us to go into our admin center. Let's go admin center. And there's two things that we need here. One, we need a webhook. So we need some kind of like phone line connection between Zendesk and the n8n agent. So that's called a webhook. And secondly, we need some kind of like way to tap Zendesk and say, hey, there's a new ticket, send this information across. And that's called a trigger. So the first thing we're going to do is actually search webhook. And let's create a webhook first. So we're creating this. Let's just go to create a new webhook. We're going to be making that webhook fire off using a trigger or automation. And let's just call this n8n webhook. Be a bit more creative here, or a bit more specific. But this webhook we're going to be using for every single ticket. So for brand new tickets into the inbox, for tickets that are recurring, or for solve tickets. So everything's going to this one agent endpoint. And for our endpoint URL, we're back in n8n. And we're just going to be copying this test URL for now. So let's go back into webhooks, paste it into here. We have the post method. We're going to be using JSON. Everything is good for here. For now, we're not going to be doing any authentication, but we could if we wanted to make this connection a bit more private. Now, let's go to test webhook to just give this a demo and see how this works. So just go to your dropdown, select custom test, and now you can edit your payload. The payload that we're going to be sending is ticket_ID, and then we're going to have some arbitrary ticket ID here. And that ticket ID, just so you can see, is essentially this over here. So this is ticket number 110. That's the ID. The ID is 110. So might as well just send this into here. So 110. And now when I hit send test into here, the information is going to come across to my agent. So this workflow is going to be generating now. And just to refresh us, this is basically saying, hi guys, what are the specs of the hot tap? And then we have a response over here. So it might kind of buckle our agent a little bit. But we're going to be seeing this information directly in our agent. So I'm going to go to test workflow, and now the test webhook is going to be receiving events. And across in the webhook, I want to hit send test. Let's hit send test. We'll have a response back saying that the request was received. And across in n8n, we've hit the first few API calls, and now we're plugging away through here. So okay, let's wait for this to finish. All right, awesome. And now let's start digging in. So the first node we have is the webhook node. And what we just defined in that webhook step is to send this package of information across. So we're just getting the ticket ID. Now, in a lot of API platforms, when you're sending across like the ticket ID or customer ID or company ID, associated to that ID is actually a bunch of different information. So using different Zendesk API calls, we can just feed in the ticket ID as the main search, the searching tool, like the searching criteria, and then we're able to pull out all the information against this ticket. So that's why we're sending the ticket ID, and that's the only thing we're sending from Zendesk. And then we're plugging the ticket ID into this first API call here. So this API call, what you have to edit is you have to insert your domain name into here. So you can just look at this, the structure of this specific URL. And when you're inside Zendesk, your URL will have something similar. So let's say your store is called Bubbles, then it will be bubbles.zendesk.com. So then all you need to copy and paste out of here is just put Bubbles into here. Then we're dragging into the endpoint, the actual ticket ID. So then our actual API call is our domain.zendesk.com and then /tickets110. And this is going to return a set of information for us, which is including the ticket subject and the very first comment from the customer. But the Zendesk API, actually, there's a bunch of different APIs that we could use. The second API is It looks very similar, but it has the ticket ID and then / comments at the very, very end. And that / comments just means, hey, Zendesk, give us the actual entire comments from the ticket, not just the very first ticket information. So that's just how Zendesk is set up. Maybe Gorgeous and Freshdesk will be different. But those are the two endpoints that we're using to capture all the ticket information. And then we have for credentials, I've just authenticated my Zendesk account, which you can just create your credentials in Zendesk. You'll have to get your API key, your domain name, and then you have to put your actual user account email address into there, and then it's going to authenticate pretty easily. So I'm going to skip over that step. We're sending our headers of content type and application JSON. And then for our body, we actually have an empty body because we don't need to kind of restrict any return data for us. So all we're really looking for is the entire package of information from Zendesk. And then if I just zoom into here, we can see that we see the URL of the ticket. So it's the 110 ticket. It came in through the email channel. So let's say you actually have email and SMS and Messenger and anything else. You would use the channel to actually split off different routes for different agents, because the response you generate for an email would be different to the structure and style of a response you generate for an SMS. An SMS might be just short and snappy, like, yep, we got that in stock. Whereas an email might be like, hi Bart, thanks for your email. Yes, we have that product in stock. Thank you very much. Bubbles, bubblesproducts.com. So that's one thing that you could actually do, is just look at what channel the email is coming from and then set up your AI agent to respond accordingly. But you got the information from the customer, their name, their address, that you can personalize their email, and then some other data over here. But the key thing that we're doing is we're pulling in the information across these two nodes, and it's got the same setup over here. So there's just application JSON and there's no actual body parameter. But we process the entire ticket. So using this, we're actually going through both of the previous nodes and we're pulling out all the ticket information that we need in order to plug into our agent. So it has the ability to read the ticket and actually generate response or generate FAQs. And I've got it filtered. So all the responses we get, we're filtering out public comments. So in this spot over here, so public comments, we only want public comments. We don't want internal notes. So anything that is in yellow, we don't actually want that. Sometimes the team might be asking questions between themselves and it might have some information you don't want the agent to see because it's not part of the response. So all that this API call is going to return is just the responses from customer and from the agent. And in order for us to format the response correctly, I've got the support staff ID over here. So support staff ID is just the user ID. Let's say you've got one account in Zendesk. This is the user ID of your staff member. You might need to edit this code to actually include an array of staff ID. So if you've got a team of 10 agents, you want to include all those 10 agents here, because when we're filtering through the comments, each comment actually has a specific author ID. So a user, like the end customer, will have a specific author ID, and then you're able to associate on the right-hand side over here, okay, the role was customer and they sent this, and then the role was staff member and they sent this. So that's actually what we're trying to do for our setup, is just distinguish between role and customer. I think for my example, it's a little bit bad because I'm using a bunch of email addresses associated to my account, but you will normally see role customer as the first message, and then role staff member as the responding message, and then so on and so forth. And just to give you an example, I'll tap here, here's the key specs. So then we have the author ID of this specific comment over here, is the person that we actually want to use. And actually in my case, this might be a little bit wrong. That's the author ID I want to paste into here. If I just test this step again, it should pull it out properly. Yep, there we go. So I actually had the wrong step, the wrong value defined. So now I have role customer, which is the first message from the user, and then I have role support staff. And that's thanks to this variable here. And in case you want to find it, you can just go through your API responses and see, all right, which one is actually from our team? That's the author ID from the team. And that's how we're able to distinguish here. So once we get that actual, process the entire ticket, so we get the JSON of that, we then flatten it into Markdown, because we're not able to actually insert the JSON into the AI agent. So once we test this step, we'll get the exact same thing that's here, but broken down into one variable called ticket info. And then we're just using Markdown format. So double hashtags for titles. We're boldening up customer. We're kind of putting some structure into this to basically to the AI, so it can distinguish between messages from users, messages from staff members. This little switch node is just looking at the status of the ticket. So we're just pulling in the status from one of the previous nodes. So for example, if we go to HTTP request 3, which is what we're using here, and we go to ticket.status. So over here we have open. So in your account, you might have a couple different statuses: new, open, pending, solved, and closed. So I'm just looking at anything that is like open or pending or whatever you want to look at here. I'm just saying if its status is open, that means the ticket is ready for us to respond to, and we're taking the first route. If the status is solved, then that's ready for us to actually examine and create an FAQ. So we've got these two routes over here. So we have agent 1 and agent 2. And then for agent 1, I've got a very basic prompt as a starter for you. I'm pulling into here the flattened information from the ticket. So if we go a couple nodes back where it says flatten, this ticket info is what we're putting into the user message. And that's how we're giving the context to the agent. And then over here, I'm actually doing a bit of a hacky job. So the first thing is, hey, you're a helpful email assistant. Your job is to read a ticket and generate a response using the web search tool. But the output that you are creating is actually a JSON output. And this is the exact body for the API call when you're generating a response for Zendesk. So now's a good time to go across to the Zendesk API docs. And yeah, so right now we're just looking at the update ticket endpoint, which is a put request with the / tickets and then ticket ID. And if I scroll down here, the body of the ticket actually explains what we want done into the ticket. The body of the API call. So we're looking at ticket, we want to add a comment. The body of the comment is this specific message. Is it a public response back to the user? Or if it was false, it would just be one of those yellow comments on Zendesk, which is an internal note. And then you can change the status as well. So typically, if you're responding to customers for the first flow of the agent, you want to set this to something like pending, because pending is a status where it's waiting for the customer to respond back to us. But this is exactly how you can like add tags to tickets, how you can trigger off different situations in your Zendesk environment or in Gorgeous and Freshdesk. So this body, we're actually creating that within this agent response. So it's the exact same format over here: ticket, comment, body. And then over here, I'm just creating the structure of what I want the response to be like. Hi there. And then we have some white space. We have the response that we're giving to the customer, which is the AI is going to be inserting here by themselves. And then we have thanks and then your customer support agent. So you would actually modify this to be exactly what you want the email format to be. But keeping it in this structure means that when we're building the API call later on, it's going to be nicely embedded directly into the API. So I'm going to go back into this in a second. But once we get that response from the agent, we're in the code node over here, and we're just parsing the response that we get to basically give us the information we can pop into the API call. Let me just hit this off one more time so we can get the full ticket information. So let's go send test. It's going to make it easier for us. Cool. So we're getting the response generated. And now in the code node, we can see the previous response is just the JSON output of ticket, comment, the body, all the information that we wanted for that ticket. And then we're parsing it out, so we can actually just pull that variable directly into the API call. So now this structure looks a lot more similar to the structure that we see here, where it's exactly formatted, ready for the API call. And then if I just click out of here and I click into this API call. So this is another Zendesk API call. Once again, we're putting our domain.zendesk.com / and then the 110 is actually from the ticket ID we're working with. Sorry for this, I'm just going to change this because I didn't bring it in. Ticket ID to the end of here. Now it's dynamic. Okay, that's perfect. So that's going to be ready when you guys download the flow, but there we go. It's going to be sending across to here. And yeah, same setup as before. Now we're putting a put because we're actually updating the information on the ticket. We're sending the exact same headers, application JSON, and then the body is just the stringify JSON, which is the previous code node. So the most recent code node after the agent, we're just sending this entire package into this API call. And if I extend out over here, we have the body of the API call, which is ready to go. And then that generates the response onto the ticket, which we can see here. 1 minute ago, we had the response. Hi there. Okay, so the formatting isn't coming through absolutely perfectly. I think somewhere along the way, it just messed up. But yeah, you can see how this would work. You would just go into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you help me with the formatting of this? Maybe the / new lines are not embedding correctly. And now we go into Google Sheets and let's see what's happening here. Unable to service your request. All right, that was strange. So I just literally hit retest step and then it sent it across and it went through. And then we had the most recent response here. So yeah, as you can see that now you have the ability to actually just come into this Google Sheet and review the information that was sent across. So you have now ticket body. You might want to parse this to make it a little bit cleaner and neater, but the customer says a specific message. We've got responses from agents and customers in here. And then we have the response that was generated. So then you might actually have a tab over here that just says like checked or verified or whatever you want. Like I said, this is in testing and you want to make sure that this is actually going good or not. You might say yes, you might say no. And then based on this feedback, you might see, okay, out of 100 tickets, there's only 3 no's. So this is actually good enough to go. Or if it's like 50% no's and 50% yeses, you might go through and kind of look at, all right, what information is incorrect. So going back in n8n, one step back here, we're using the HTTP node to actually hit the Perplexity API. So the Perplexity API is just using the chat completions endpoint. I've got it open, which is over here. So it's the chat completions endpoint, it's a post request. Then we have the body of the API call here. So just pay attention to this. So we've got model and messages that we're sending across. And across in our n8n agent, let me just scroll down a little bit. So I've got my authorization where I get the API key directly from my Perplexity account. It has to be bearer and then the actual API key. But if I zoom out, you might notice that this is a slightly different API or HTTP request node that you're used to. And that's because this is the latest version of n8n. So previously you could actually just generate the JSON and then input like a placeholder, which is going to be, which is basically defines what's the question we want to be asking to the Perplexity API. So the placeholder is a dynamic variable that the AI agent would insert into the actual body of the API call. We now have to do this kind of setup where for the JSON, you just use the AI button. So it's like a button like this right over here, and it automatically generates. And then in the description, you just have to explain exactly what the body would look like, and then the agent will dynamically change that. So in our case, we have the model, which is Sonar. We've got this search domain filter, which I'm using julka.com, which is my e-commerce website. And from the API call, it's not actually listed in here. So it's just model Sonar and then the messages that we're sending. But if you scroll down, one of the other variables is actually search domain filter. So search domain filter is really cool because you can literally just put your website information here. Or if you're using something like Zendesk and you have a customer support page, which for example is something like this. So this is actually we use Zendesk for my e-commerce store, and we have the Zendesk support page extension. And we've got like heaps and heaps of articles here that we created for people to be able to like troubleshoot their Julka gear, to get FAQs on the gear, to raise requests. Everything for all of our products is here, and we maintain this as a source of truth. So yeah, all we're doing is we're adding that URL into here. So technically I could actually add the julka.com, which is a sales page, and then also the julka.com like /support page into here. So this is exactly how you set that up. So you put your search domain filter into here, then every single question that we're asking using the agent is only going to be from our actual web page. You can actually edit the be precise and concise over here. So the system content you can change, but the AI agent, the parent agent, actually does a good job of editing the response anyway. And then I have the variable over here, which is question to ask. And yeah, this is perfect. It works a treat. You don't have to create a separate Pinecone or like separate RAG agent. So that works perfectly. And then we have, yeah, like basically whatever we had before. So we have the code node that parses the response, goes into the API call, and goes into Google Sheet. So let's look at the second flow now. So for solve tickets, if I go across to my webhook, and let me just find the solve ticket. So ticket 103 is solved. So I'm going to copy this. And now let's give this workflow a run. So I'm going to go to test workflow, go back into my webhook over here and paste in 103. I'm going to hit send test. And now the agent's going to be generating an FAQ for us. So if I go through, basically it's the exact same steps, step by step. We pull out the initial ticket information, then all the comments, we parse it, we flatten it. And then we have a switch router where we're using solve tickets. So in this condition, or in this specific instance, we made the condition of solve tickets. So if I go back to this step over here, we should be able to see the status. Okay, there we go. Status is solved. And be mindful that it's lowercase. It's all lowercase. So status is solved, lowercase. And then the AI agent's got a very simple prompt again. And yeah, ticket info, we're just bringing it in from that flattened node. So as you can see, we can just pop this open and it has all the ticket information that we had. So the subject, the information from the staff member, from the agent, whatever else we had over here. And then we have a very basic prompt. And I mean, what you would do here is actually figure out exactly what kind of reporting you want for all solved tickets. And then you would just build out this FAQ section. So right now I'm like, yeah, I want the FAQ. But you might also want like, what was the ticket about? So what was the topic of intent? Was it a general question? Was it an order question? Was it troubleshooting? You might want to see like how many responses were on a ticket. If it was below 3, this is a perfect ticket for us to try and automate or create articles for. If it was above 10 responses, then this is a really troublesome ticket for us. How do we improve our experience earlier up the line so that the customer doesn't have to have so much friction down the line? So yeah, for the second flow, it's a really good starting flow for you to just see exactly how the system works. And I think to generate FAQs is a very, very good starting point, but you could do a lot more with this. So yeah, this prompt would be a lot more comprehensive. You could say, create me a JSON output that actually has an FAQ. It lists how many comments were on a ticket. It figures out what was the contact reason about, categorizes the ticket. And then you could possibly even have like an agent. So not an agent, but like an API step like this, where it's a put request, where you're not actually updating a comment onto the ticket, but rather you're updating tags onto the ticket. And then within Zendesk, you're able to generate some like Zendesk reporting in the Explore dashboards. So once you generate the FAQ, let's just see what that was. What are the opening hours? And our open hours are from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So that was a very basic ticket. And then we're adding adding all that information just using the placeholders that we're pulling across from the different nodes. And if I go into the FAQs over here, we've got the FAQ that we pulled across as well. So yeah, once again, you would build this out to be a little bit more comprehensive, but we've got all the key ticket information. So when was the last update on that ticket? What was the ticket ID? What was the subject of that ticket? The body of that ticket. And then we have, over here, what are the actual open hours? And then, what are the actual open hours? And then from here, you can have another column if you wanted to, and just see, and just say like reviewed. And you can say like, yes, good FAQ, or no, bad FAQ. And then, one by one, every Monday, 9 a.m., just kind of go through here and then assess, is this good to go? Or should we, change our website information or whatever? Okay, and now our final step is we have the webhook sending information into here, but now we have to go into Zendesk and actually have a trigger that will fire off every time a ticket is created or a comment is added to the ticket. So to give you a starting point for that, let's go back into this webhook. So I'm just going to go in and create this webhook because it's ready for us to go. So I'm actually still using the test URL for the webhook. But what you would do is go into your webhook over here, just go into production mode and just copy across this production. We'll just do this now actually. So we'll just copy this across, go back into webhooks, leave without connecting. And we just made this n8n webhook. So I'm just going to go actions, edit this. And now into here, I would paste my production version, just update this because it's good to go. And then for your n8n agent, you just have to be sure that you come out of here and you hit save and you hit active. And now active means you're going to be using the production URL. So back in Zendesk, let's now search trigger. And I'm going to show you how to start building these triggers for yourself. But the first one is you want to have, like every time a ticket is created or every time a ticket is responded to, you want to create a trigger that sends that ticket information across to our n8n agent. So like what we were doing there, putting the ticket ID manually, we just want to do that automatically as well. So let's go n8n and go new ticket category, choose whatever we want. And now for our conditions, we want to go on the ticket status. So, or actually for us, we want to go ticket is created for brand new tickets. And we can now have an action here which says every time a ticket is created, we want to do something to it. So what do we want to do? We actually want to notify by active webhook, which just means that every time a new ticket is created, we want to notify a specific webhook, and that's the n8n webhook we just created. And the body of this is going to be exactly what we had before. So ticket underscore ID, and it has to be the exact same as what we were playing around with before so that it makes sense for the n8n scenario. And then the actual body of the request over here is going to be in commas. We're going to view available placeholders. And now we're going to find the ticket ID. So the ticket ID gives us the ability to dynamically insert the ticket ID into this little JSON over here. So basically we're saying every time a ticket is created, send this payload across to this specific endpoint. And that's what we're doing with the test before as well. So yeah, now we have this set up. So ticket ID equals the dynamic ticket ID of the ticket ID or of the ticket in question. We create this trigger, and then that's going to be firing off for brand new tickets. And actually what you would create is another trigger now. So n8n update ticket. So let's go update dash ticket, leave it for notifications, go into here, and let's go ticket. Where are we? Ticket status, no, ticket is updated. And you want to only fire it off for the condition where the current user, the one that actually updated the ticket, so it can either be updated by our agent, like the support staff, or by the customer, is end user. So now this is saying that every time a ticket is updated with the comment from an end user, which is the customer that's emailing us, we also want to fire off that ticket into the n8n agent because that's an opportunity for us to reply. So category, we're going to go notify by active webhook, n8n webhook, the exact same one we had. And now let's build this thing out just like we did before. So quotation marks, ticket underscore ID. Then here we put this, and then we want to find that variable again. So we're going to be scrolling down until we find ticket ID. So let's copy that. Let's paste it into here. Awesome. So now ticket ID, and then we have the dynamic ticket ID of that ticket. Let's create this, And now every single time you get an email, so a brand new ticket is created, or you actually get a response from a customer, both of those tickets are going to be sent across to your n8n agent. And the final trigger you want to create is n8n solved. Oops, n8n solved. And for this, it's going to be the ticket status. So ticket status is solved. And now when a ticket is actually changed to solved, and I think changed to is better, because it's only going to be firing off once. If you have ticket status is solved, every time there's an action on that ticket, like an update that we're doing with the tags, it's going to trigger it again and again and again. It's going to be a loop. So then you want this to fire off only when it's changed to solved, so just that one time. And same action, because we're now actually notifying, we're going to be actually going through the solved ticket and generating some FAQs or doing our other reporting onto here. And the exact same thing. So we have ticket underscore ID, and then we have quotation marks and ticket ID. I had it pasted from before, and create trigger. And now every single time you get a message or an update to a ticket, or you have a solved ticket, they're all going to be sent across to your AI agent, and the agent's going to be responding to tickets or actually generating some reporting for you. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching into the end. If you're here at this stage, can you please drop a like on the video so YouTube can actually push this out to more people? And if you're going to be using this workflow, drop a comment below and just let me know, yep, I'm going to be using this, and here's some additions that I'm making as well. All right, thanks, guys. See ya.